Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Fernando Gutierrez, and I am a first year Master of Art in Athletic Training graduate student at Fresno Pacific University. Today, I will present a research proposal titled Effect of Weighted Ball Program on Throwing Velocity in Collegiate Baseball Players. This research proposal is for our research methods in kinesiology class, and a couple of the topics that will be discussed within this presentation will be literature review of weighted ball programs, purpose statement and research question of proposal, methods of research proposal, and practical applications of weighted ball programs. So first things first, let's dive into the literature review of the weighted ball programs. So literature review of weighted ball programs have either consisted of the strict use of either an overweighted ball, an underweighted ball, or using a combination of both. Um, the study by Bros and Hansen used specifically an overweighted ball in their study. Their study also had two experimental groups and a control group. One of the groups used the overweighted ball, another group used a wall pulley system to train, and the control group just used a regular baseball. In their study, Bros and Hansen were able to find that both overload training groups showed a statistically significant gain in velocity. Even though both of those groups statistically improved their throwing velocity, a possible limitation to that study would be that it is hard to determine whether the overweighted ball had more of an effect than the wall pulley system in increasing throwing velocity or vice versa. But nonetheless, since the group that trained with the overweighted ball improved their throwing velocity, it gives some credibility to the study. Studies by DeRene in 1990 and 1994 used a combination of both overweight and underweighted balls. And in the 1990 study, DeRene was able to find that overload implement throwing group and underload implement throwing group showed significantly greater improvement in throwing velocity compared to control. And then in their follow-up study in 1994, they were able to show that the study shows that weighted baseball training increases pitching velocity. So there is a little bit of a contrast in the methods that were used in these two studies compared to the study in 1967. But the point being that the use of the weighted ball in the 1990 and 1994 studies still significantly improved pitching velocity. And lastly, the study by Yang in 2013, their study specifically focused on the use of an underweighted ball within their population. And the results of their study, they were able to find that the players' throwing velocity increased at approximately 3.20% after the 10-week pitching training with a 4.4 ounce lightweight baseball. So again, throughout this literature review, the weighted ball programs can either range from specifically sticking to one or using a combination of both, but the increase in throwing velocity is there. So this leads into the research proposal that hopes to find similar results by using a combination of both overweighted balls and underweighted balls. The purpose statement is as follows. The purpose statement of the study is to determine if a weighted ball program would increase throwing velocity in male collegiate baseball players. So within this purpose statement, we have our two independent variables, which would either be the weighted ball program or the non-weighted ball program. We have our dependent variable, which would be throwing velocity, which would be measured pre and post. And we also have our population, which would be collegiate baseball players. Now, the research question of the intended proposal would be, does a weighted ball program increase throwing velocity in male collegiate baseball players? Again, the research question is aimed at trying to find similar results from studies in the literature review of the use of weighted ball programs and whether or not an increase in throwing velocity would be seen when male collegiate baseball players would use weighted balls. If we were conducting the study, the null hypothesis would be that there would be no significant difference between the two groups, whereas the alternative hypothesis or research hypothesis would be that there would be a significant difference in throwing velocity between the two groups. The following slides will present the methodology of the research proposal, which consists of the study design, participants, procedures, and data analysis. So this first slide here, study design. The study design used in this research proposal would be an experimental pre-test, post-test randomized group as discussed in Thomas, Nelson, and Silverman. An advantage to using this study design is the fact that it gives each of the participants an equal chance to be selected into respective groups. In this case, the respective groups being the weighted ball group or the non-weighted ball group. Next, we will discuss the participants of the study. So participants, 40 male collegiate baseball pitchers would be selected from a junior college in the Central Valley of California. Since it is a junior college, the participants will either be freshmen or sophomores. In this case, the study would have a number of 25 freshmen and a number of 15 sophomores. The age range between the 40 participants is anywhere from 17 to 23 years old, with the mean being 19 years, standard deviation between them 1.3 years, and the median of 20.5 years. Baseball experience within the 40 participants would be at least 4 years of baseball experience, and that would be from the 4 years of high school baseball that they participated in before they entered junior college. Lastly here, informed consent. Each of the participants received informed consent. If a participant was under the age of 18, then parental consent would have to be considered, but every participant of the study was had informed consent, the procedures of the study, and also the research proposal followed rules and guidelines presented by the NIH protecting human subjects, and also would receive IRB approval. Instruments used within the study, one of them would be the JUGS radar gun that would be used to measure our dependent variable of throwing velocity. The driveline throwing program, which consists of weighted baseballs, plyo-care balls, which can be thought of as plyometric functional exercise balls, wrist weights, and also Jaeger bands or resistance bands that are all used within the functional exercises of the program, and these will be discussed a little bit more in detail in the following slides. As far as team equipment, this just refers to any miscellaneous items such as nets, regular size baseballs, facilities, and stuff like that. The procedures. So the weighted ball group would be following the driveline throwing program as discussed in Body 2016. The driveline throwing program consists of a warm-up routine, functional exercises, weighted ball throwing protocol, and recovery routine. This phase is also divided into 3 phases. One of the important factors of utilizing this program is the fact that it's specific to the sport of baseball. Freeston et al. Stated in 2016 that exercises with greater specificity to the movement pattern and speed of throwing were better predictors of throwing velocity and should be used in preference over exercises that are slower and have less movement specificity to the throwing motion. As far as a non-weighted ball group, they would adhere to team activities and lifting programs. And an important note to note from the weighted ball group is that they would not be performing any lifting or structured resistance training lifting program that the team would be doing to not take into effect the strength gains from those programs into the research proposal. Also, pre and post throwing velocities would be measured within the study to see if there would be any differences between the two groups. This slide right here just describes a little bit of the 3 phases that are within the driveline throwing program. The on-ramp phase, regular phase, and velocity phase. Each of these phases has their specific weeks in which they are performed, their frequency, which is listed here, and the weighted balls that are used within each week. One thing to note from the three phases is that the functional exercises performed with the plowcare balls, the wrist weights, and the Jaeger bands or resistance bands is that they stay consistent throughout the weeks, and the only thing that changes is the exercise performed and the amount of reps and sets performed. As far as the statistical method that would be used in this research proposal, it would be a repeated measures ANOVA. The significance level for this ANOVA would be set at alpha 0.05, and the structure of the statistical test would be a 2x2. So two groups are weighted ball group and non-weighted ball group, and our two trials, which would be pre and post. So practical applications from the weighted ball programs, or practical applications that could arise from implementing a weighted ball program. This first point right here, improvement of athletic performance. Literature review studies have shown significant improvement in throwing velocity. If a baseball athlete is able to significantly increase their throwing velocity with a weighted ball program, then that just changes how they play the game and how they can impact the game. So many oftentimes, a baseball play can be decided within a second or a step. So if an increase of anywhere between 1 to 2 to 3 miles per hour can change the outcome of a play or a game, then it is significantly important and practical to find applications to the use of weighted ball programs. Another point is that it can be used as a supplemental or alternative training program. For the most part, baseball programs have set, resistance training programs that they adhere to help develop their players. But this weighted ball program could either, again, be used as a supplement to the already existing resistance program, or offered as an alternative training program to see or to test between two different programs within a baseball team or within a baseball conference. So also coaches and sports medicine team members, I feel that have a responsibility to find alternatives or training programs to help better develop the athletes that they work with. So this would be a practical application to help better train the athletes that we work with. And lastly, a potential crossover effect. So a lot of the studies have focused on the use of weighted ball programs in baseball, but baseball is not the only overhead throwing program that exists. So being able to find the use for weighted ball programs in other sports such as football, softball, cricket, or handball, to where they can be implemented and have an impact on throwing velocity within those sports, should be a practical application that could also be used. In conclusion, again, just restating the purpose of the research proposal, which would be, does a weighted ball program increase throwing velocity in male collegiate baseball pitchers? Literature review has shown that it has significant potential to increase throwing velocity. This study of weighted balls is important to the career field because it can enhance credibility to using weighted ball programs. Evidence-based efficacy, the more research that we are able to perform, the more evidence that we are able to provide into weighted ball programs. And lastly, it is meaningful research. It is meaningful because it can help develop players and improve their athletic performance. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope I was able to increase your knowledge on weighted ball programs. Thank you. Bye.